The throne room of the Empire was silent. Queen Vila sat on her golden chair, her silver skin shining under the bright lights. Her 4 eyes looked at the council members standing before her. They were talking about the human again. 3 years, General said with disgust in his voice. 3 years we have kept this creature in our palace. He does nothing. He adds nothing. He is a waste of resources. Queen Vila did not respond immediately. She remembered the day she agreed to this marriage. Earth's Federation had offered technology and trade routes. In exchange, they wanted a political union, a marriage between their soldier and the queen. It was supposed to bring 2 civilizations together. But they saw humans as weak beings. They were small, soft, and lived very short lives. The average lived for 500 years. Humans barely reached 100. To the humans were like insects, here today, gone tomorrow. The alliance with Earth has brought us benefits, one of the elder council members said carefully. Their technology has improved our medical systems. We could have taken their technology by force, General replied. Instead, our queen shares her bed with a primitive. I do not share anything with him, Queen Vila finally spoke. Her voice was cold like ice. The human stays in his own chambers. I have not visited him since the wedding ceremony. This was true. After the formal marriage ritual, Vila had never once gone to see her human husband. She did not even remember his face clearly. He was just a political tool, nothing more. Far from the throne room, in a quiet corner of the palace, a man named was watering his plants. His small garden was filled with flowers and vegetables from Earth. Green leaves and colorful petals grew in special containers that recreated Earth's environment. Was 32 years old. He had black hair, brown eyes, and a calm face that rarely showed emotion. He wore simple clothes, nothing like the fancy robes of nobles. The servants who brought him food thought he was boring. The guards who watched his door thought he was pathetic, but did not mind what they thought. He had learned long ago that what people thought and what was true were often very different things. A servant entered his room without knocking. This was normal. No one showed respect to the human. Your food, the servant said, dropping a tray on the table. The dishes made a loud noise. Thank you, said politely, bowing his head slightly. The servant laughed. So polite, so weak. I do not understand why Earth sent you. Did they have no real warriors? Smiled gently. Perhaps they thought a gardener would be more useful than a warrior. The servant shook his head and left, still laughing. When he was alone, smile faded. He walked to his window and looked out at the alien sky. 2 moons hung in the purple darkness, beautiful but not home. He opened a hidden compartment in his desk and pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple music player, but it was actually a communication tool. He typed a message in a code that only a few people in the universe could read. Status unchanged. The queen remains distant. The court sees me as expected, waiting for further orders. He sent the message and hid the device again. Then he returned to his plants, humming a soft song from Earth. The next morning, everything changed. Was eating breakfast when warning alarms filled the palace. Red lights flashed. Soldiers ran through the hallways. He could hear commanders shouting orders in the language. He understood every word. He had learned their language in the first month, though he pretended to still struggle with it. They have attacked, someone shouted. 3 border worlds have fallen. Stopped eating. The Dominion was the Empire's greatest enemy. They were a violent species that conquered planets and enslaved populations. For centuries, the 2 empires had maintained an uneasy peace, but it seemed that peace was now over. He walked to his window and watched as warships launched from the palace grounds. The military was mobilizing. This was a serious attack. In the throne room, Queen Vila received reports from her commanders. Her face showed no fear, but her hands gripped the arms of her throne tightly. Emperor has declared war, a messenger said, kneeling before her. He says they have grown weak. He says our alliance with the humans proves we are no longer worthy of respect. General slammed his fist on the table. This is because of that human, the see our marriage as weakness. Enough, Vila commanded. The reason does not matter now. What matters is our response. Prepare the fleet. We will show Emperor the price of attacking the Empire. As the council discussed battle plans, no one noticed a figure standing in the shadows near the door. Had followed the commotion and found his way to the throne room. He watched and listened as the generals argued about strategy. He noticed something immediately. Their plans were too predictable. They followed traditional patterns that any good enemy would expect. They were not attacking randomly. They were targeting specific weak points in defenses. Someone was giving them information. Slipped away before anyone saw him. He returned to his room and sat in the darkness, thinking. The war would change everything. The careful balance he had maintained for 3 years was about to shift. He had been sent here to observe and wait, but waiting might no longer be an option. He looked at his hands. They were the hands of a gardener, dirty with soil, gentle with flowers, but they had not always been so gentle. They remembered other things he had tried very hard to forget. Outside, more warships launched into the sky. The Empire was going to war, and somewhere in the palace, a human that everyone ignored was making his own plans. Queen Vila would eventually learn the truth about the man she had married. She would learn why Earth had really sent him. She would learn what he was capable of. But not yet, not until the time was right. Picked up a small flower pot and examined the plant inside. It was a rose from Earth, delicate, beautiful, and covered with sharp thorns. He smiled at the irony. Sometimes the most dangerous things look the most harmless. The galaxy was about to learn this lesson, and the teacher would be a quiet gardener who everyone thought was too weak to matter. The war was going badly. 2 weeks had passed since the first attack, and the Empire had lost 7 worlds. Millions of their people were dead or captured. The Dominion was advancing faster than anyone expected. Queen Vila stood before a massive holographic map in her war room. Red dots marked the fallen planets. There were too many red dots. We sent our strongest fleet to defend the system, General reported. His voice was tired. He had not slept in days. They were waiting for us. They knew exactly where our ships would arrive. We lost 40% of our forces. Vila closed her 4 eyes. 40%. That was thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. How, she asked quietly, how do they know our movements? No one had an answer. The council members looked at each other with fear in their eyes. They had been the strongest empire in the galaxy for 1,000 years. They had never lost a war. But now they were losing badly, and they did not understand why. We must change our strategy, an elder advisor suggested. Perhaps we should ask Earth for help. Their federation has a large military. General laughed bitterly. Ask the humans, those soft creatures. They would be destroyed in minutes. Their ships are primitive. Their weapons are toys compared to ours. And yet we are losing, another voice said. Everyone turned, was standing at the entrance of the war room. He had walked past the guards without anyone stopping him. After all, who would stop the queen's harmless husband? General's face turned dark with anger. What are you doing here, human? This is a military meeting. Go back to your flowers. Ignored him. He walked toward the holographic map and studied it carefully. The council members watched in confusion. The human had never shown interest in anything before. Your communication network is compromised, said simply. Silence filled the room. What did you say? Queen Vila asked slowly. Pointed at the map. Look at the pattern. They are not predicting your strategy. They know your strategy. Every battle they arrive before you do. Every defense they attack from the perfect angle. They are receiving your orders in real time. General stepped forward threateningly. You dare suggest that we have a spy, that someone in this room is a traitor?" "I am not suggesting a spy," replied calmly. "I am suggesting a technical breach. Someone has put listening devices in your communication satellites. Every message you send, they receive." The room erupted in arguments. Some said it was impossible. Others said the human was lying. General demanded that be removed immediately. But Queen Vila raised her hand, and everyone fell silent. She really looked at him for the first time since their wedding day. His face was calm. His eyes were steady. There was no fear, no nervousness. He spoke like a man who was certain of his words. "How do you know this?" she asked. Reached into his pocket and pulled out a small tablet. He had built it himself from spare parts he found in the palace. He showed her the screen. "I have been monitoring your communication frequencies for several months," he explained. "There are small delays in your transmissions, microseconds that should not exist. These delays occur because your messages are being before they are delivered." Vila took the tablet and studied the data. She was not a technical expert, but she understood enough to see that his analysis was detailed and professional. "Why were you monitoring our communications?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Met her eyes without fear. "Because I had nothing else to do, and because I wanted to understand the empire I married into." General grabs arm roughly. "He admits to spying. He is the traitor." "If I were a traitor," said, still calm, "why would I tell you about the security breach? The logical action would be to stay silent and let you lose the war." Vila held up her hand again. "Release him, General." Obeyed, but his face showed his hatred for the human. Vila stood and walked down from her platform until she was standing directly in front of. She was taller than him by almost a foot. Her silver skin seemed to glow. Her 4 eyes studied him like he was a puzzle she needed to solve. "You are not what you appear to be," she said softly. Smiled slightly. "Your Majesty, I am exactly what I appear to be, a man who pays attention when others do not." That night Vila ordered a secret inspection of all communication satellites. Her most trusted technicians, ones who reported only to her, found exactly what had predicted. Tiny devices, hidden in the satellite cores, were copying every transmission and sending them to receivers. The devices were removed. New encryption codes were created. And for the first time in weeks, the military made a move that they did not expect. They won the battle. It was a small victory, just one planet recaptured, but it was enough to give the hope. Vila called to her private chambers that night. He arrived wearing his simple clothes, looking like a servant rather than a royal husband. "Sit," she commanded. He sat across from her at a small table. She poured 2 glasses of wine, something she had never done for him before. "You saved many lives today," she said. "I only pointed out a problem," replied. "Your soldiers won the battle." Vila shook her head. "Do not be modest. False modesty is a form of lying, and I do not like liars." She paused. "Tell me the truth. Who are you really?" Took a sip of wine. It was bitter, but he did not react. "I am a soldier," he said finally. "Or I was once. On Earth, I served in our military for 15 years. I fought in several conflicts. When our government decided to form an alliance with they needed someone to send. Someone who could observe your empire from the inside." "A spy," Vila said flatly. "An observer," corrected. "My mission was not to steal secrets. It was to learn about your people, to understand if this alliance was good for Earth." He set down his glass. "I have observed for 3 years. I have seen your empire's strengths and weaknesses, and I have decided that this alliance is worth protecting." Vila was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. "A human spy living in my palace for 3 years, and I never suspected. My generals call your species primitive. Perhaps they should reconsider." Allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps they should. From that night forward, things changed. Vila began consulting in secret. He reviewed battle plans and found weaknesses. He suggested strategies that the commanders had never considered. Slowly, the war began to turn. But they were not finished, and soon they would make a move that would force to reveal much more than simple intelligence. They would discover that the quiet gardener was hiding more than observation skills. They would learn why Earth had really sent him. And they would regret ever starting this war. 1 month had passed since revealed the communication breach. The war was no longer one-sided. They won some battles and lost others. It was a real fight now, not a slaughter. Continued his secret work with Queen Vila. They met every night in her private chambers, studying maps and discussing strategy. The Queen was beginning to see him differently. He was no longer the pathetic human she had ignored for 3 years. He was something more. But she still did not know everything. One evening, as walked through the palace gardens, an old woman appeared on his path. But her skin was darker than most, almost gray. Her 4 eyes were clouded with age. She wore the white robes of a priestess. "You are the human," she said. It was not a question. Bowed politely. "Yes, honored one, I am. I am High Priestess of the ancient temple." She walked closer and studied his face. "The spirits have spoken of you." Maintained his calm expression, but inside he was alert. He knew about the religion. They believed in spirits that connected all living things. Their priests and priestesses claimed to receive messages from these spirits. "What did they say?" he asked carefully. Smiled, showing teeth that were worn with age. "They call you the hidden fire, a flame that burns without light, waiting for the right moment to shine." "I am just a gardener," said. "No," shook her head slowly. "You are much more, I can feel it. There is something ancient inside you, something your own species does not understand." She reached out and touched his chest, right over his heart. "You carry a burden, a secret that weighs on your soul." Gently removed her hand. "We all carry secrets, High Priestess." Laughed, a dry, crackling sound. "True, but your secret could change the fate of the galaxy. Remember my words, hidden fire, you cannot stay hidden forever." She walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the garden. Stood alone, thinking about her words. He did not believe in spirits or prophecies, but he could not deny that had seen something true. He was hiding. He had been hiding for a very long time. 3 days later, everything changed. Was in his room when Vila burst through the door. She had never visited his chambers before. Her face was pale, paler than normal, and her hands were shaking. "Your sister," she said. "They have taken your sister." His blood turned to ice. His younger sister. She was a scientist working on a human colony near space. She studied alien plant life and developed new medicines. She had nothing to do with the war. "How?" he asked. His voice was steady, but his eyes had changed. They were harder now, colder. Vila handed him a communication tablet. A video message was playing. Emperor appeared on the screen. He was a massive creature, 8 feet tall, with dark red skin and golden eyes. His face was cruel and proud. "Greetings, Queen Vila," said in the recording. "I have something that belongs to your husband, a small human female named. She is quite fragile. I hope she survives the journey to my palace." The video showed in a prison cell. She was scared but trying to be brave. Hands tightened into fists. Continued, "I offer a trade. Send me your human husband and I will return the female. You have 1 week to decide. If you refuse, she will die. And it will not be quick." The video ended. Vila was watching carefully. "General has already suggested that we accept the trade. He says you are not valuable enough to keep." Did not respond. He was staring at the screen where his sister's image had been. "I told him no," Vila continued. "I do not know why, but I did." Finally looked at her. "Why does want me? I am nobody, a gardener, a minor military advisor. Why would the Emperor of the Dominion ask for me specifically?" It was a good question. Vila had wondered the same thing, was not stupid. He would not make such a request unless he had a reason. Perhaps he discovered your role in fixing our communications, she suggested. Perhaps, but did not believe it. There was something more. Someone had told about him, someone who knew what really was. That night made his decision. He would not wait for politics and negotiations. He would not sit quietly while his sister suffered. He would do what he should have done from the beginning. He would stop hiding. At midnight, move through the palace like a shadow. He avoided guards with ease, not by luck but by skill. He knew their patrol patterns. He knew which corridors had cameras and which did not. He reached the royal hangar where small spacecraft were kept. Choosing a fast shuttle, he disabled its tracking system and prepared for launch. Before he left, he wrote a message and sent it to Vila's personal tablet. "I will return with my sister, and with the Emperor's head, wait for me." The shuttle launched into the night sky. Palace alarms activated, but it was too late. Was gone, flying toward space alone. Vila read his message in her chambers. She did not know whether to be angry or impressed. General burst into her room moments later. "The human has escaped. He has stolen a royal shuttle. We should track him and bring him back." But Vila shook her head slowly. "No, let him go." "Your Majesty, he is one human flying into enemy territory. He will be captured or killed within hours." Vila remembered words about the hidden fire. She remembered the coldness in his eyes when he learned about his sister. She remembered all the things he had seen that her generals had missed. "I do not think so," she said quietly. "I think Emperor made a terrible mistake today. He woke something that should have been left sleeping." Stared at her in confusion, but Vila just looked out her window at the stars where shuttle had disappeared. Somewhere in her heart she felt something she had never felt before. It was not anger or fear. It was curiosity, and perhaps just a little bit of hope. She wanted to see what her human husband was really capable of. The galaxy was about to find out. The border station received an alert. An unknown shuttle was approaching their space. Standard procedure was to capture and inspect all unidentified vessels. Commander ordered his patrol ships to intercept. It was a simple task. One small shuttle against 4 armed fighters. The outcome was obvious. 15 minutes later, Commander received a strange report. His patrol ships were not responding. He sent another team to investigate. They found the 4 fighters floating dead in space. Their weapons had never fired. Their crews were unconscious inside, with no memory of what had happened. The enemy shuttle was gone. This was the first sign that something unusual had entered territory. Flew deeper into enemy space. His shuttle was fast, but it was not invisible. He knew they would eventually find him, so he did not try to hide. Instead, he became a ghost. At each checkpoint, he used false identification codes that he had created during his 3 years on Prime. He had studied encryption in his spare time, just in case. Now, that preparation was saving his life. When codes did not work, he used other methods. A supply station detected his shuttle and demanded that he stop for inspection. Docked his ship as ordered. 3 armed soldiers boarded to search his vessel. 10 seconds later, all 3 were unconscious on the floor. Had not used a weapon. He had used his hands, striking pressure points that disabled his opponents before they could react. It was a fighting technique from Earth, developed over centuries of human warfare. He left the soldiers alive. He was not here to kill unless necessary. He was here for his sister. News began to spread through military channels. Something was moving through their territory, something fast, invisible, and dangerous. Soldiers reported strange encounters. Security teams disappeared. Bases went silent. The intelligence service tried to identify the threat. They analyzed every piece of evidence. Finally, they matched the intruder's fighting style to records from a human military database. The name they found made them pause. The Reaper of Titan. On Earth, the Reaper of Titan was a legend. During the Titan Rebellion, a war fought on one of Saturn's moons, a single soldier had ended the conflict almost alone. He infiltrated enemy bases without detection. He disabled their commanders without killing them. He destroyed their will to fight without firing a single shot. The official record said he died in a classified operation 5 years ago. His body was never recovered. His real name was sealed in the highest security files. But the Now knew the truth. The Reaper was alive, and he was coming for them. Emperor received the reports with amusement at first. One human against his entire empire. Ridiculous. But as the days passed, his amusement turned to concern. The human was getting closer to his capital world, and nothing could stop him. Doubled the guards around his palace. He tripled security around the prison where was kept. He sent his best assassins to hunt the intruder. None of them returned. On the 5th day, reached the prison ship where was held. It was a massive vessel in orbit around the home world, heavily armed, heavily guarded, and supposedly impossible to breach. Breached it in 2 hours. He moved through the ship like smoke through wind. Guards fell asleep at their posts. Their drinks had been drugged hours earlier when had infiltrated the kitchen systems. Security doors opened with codes that should have been unbreakable, but had spent 3 days observing the officers who used them. When he finally reached cell, she almost did not recognize him. She whispered, "Is that really you?" He looked different. His gentle gardener's face was gone. His eyes were focused and sharp. His body moved with a warrior's precision. He was wearing stolen armor and carrying enough weapons to fight an army. "It is me, little sister," he said softly. "I am sorry I took so long." Started crying. She ran to him and hugged him tightly. He held her for just a moment, allowing himself that small comfort before pulling back. "We need to go now." They moved through the ship together, had memorized every corridor, every guard rotation, every escape route. They reached the hangar without trouble. But someone was waiting for them. His personal guard, 50 elite soldiers, stood between them and freedom. Their commander stepped forward. "The Emperor is disappointed," he said. "He wanted to meet the famous Reaper personally, but you have caused too much trouble. Now you will simply die." Pushed behind him. "Stay close to the wall. Do not move until I tell you. There are too many. Trust me." The guards attacked. What happened next was something we'd never forget. Her brother, her quiet, gentle brother who used to make her breakfast and help her with homework, became something else entirely. He moved faster than she could follow. He struck harder than should have been possible. Soldiers fell around him like leaves in a storm. Their weapons could not touch him. Their numbers meant nothing. In 3 minutes, 50 elite guards lay unconscious on the floor. Was not even breathing hard. He turned to his sister, "Let us go home." They escaped in a stolen fighter. As they flew away, sent a transmission to Emperor's palace. It was a simple message, broadcast on all frequencies. "You wanted to know what humans are capable of. Now you know, and I am not even the strongest of us. Release the captured prisoners. End this war, or I will return. And next time I will not be so gentle." The message reached every corner of space. It reached the Empire. It reached Earth and a dozen other civilizations. And everywhere it reached, people asked the same question: who was this human? And if he was not the strongest, who was? The legend of the Reaper of Titan had been dead for 5 years. Now it was reborn, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The stolen fighter entered space on the 7th day. Patrol ships immediately surrounded it, weapons ready to fire. But Queen Vila had given strict orders: let the ship through. News of his actions had already reached the Empire. Everyone knew what he had done. The quiet gardener who watered plants and bowed to servants had invaded enemy territory alone. He had defeated 50 elite soldiers with his bare hands. He had humiliated Emperor in front of the entire galaxy. The palace was silent when ship landed. Hundreds have gathered to watch, nobles, servants, soldiers, and common people. They wanted to see this human for themselves. The ship's door opened. Stepped out first, followed by his sister. He was still wearing the stolen armor, now covered with scratches and burns from his journey. His face showed exhaustion, but his eyes were calm. He looked exactly like what he was, a warrior returning from battle. Queen Vila stood at the front of the crowd, wearing her formal royal robes. General stood beside her, his face unreadable. The other council members watched with a mixture of shock and curiosity. Walked toward the queen. The crowd parted to let him through. When he reached her, he did something unexpected. He kneeled, not with the weakness of a servant, but with the respect of an equal acknowledging another. "I have returned, Your Majesty," he said, "as I promised." Vila looked down at him. This was the man she had ignored for 3 years. The man her generals had called weak and useless. The man who had just accomplished something her entire military could not do. "Rise," she commanded. He stood. They were face to face now, closer than they had ever been. Vila studied his features, the lines of stress around his eyes, the small scars she had never noticed before, the quiet strength in his expression. "You are not a gardener," she said. "I am many things," replied. "A gardener is one of them." General stepped forward. His pride was wounded. For years he had mocked this human. Now that same human had done what could never do. "The will want revenge," said harshly. "This stunt has made things worse. Emperor will not let this insult pass." "General is correct," agreed. "We'll respond. That is why we must act first." Vila raised an eyebrow. "What do you suggest?" Turned to address the crowd. His voice was strong enough for everyone to hear. "For too long they have fought alone. You are proud and your pride has made you strong, but pride can also make you blind. They are united in their hatred. We must be united in our defense." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I propose an alliance, not just between thee and Earth, but between all the species that the threaten. A coalition of worlds working together against a common enemy." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Such an alliance had never existed before. The different species of the galaxy barely tolerated each other. Cooperation on this scale seemed impossible. But Vila was thinking. She remembered how had found the communication breach when her best experts failed. She remembered how his strategies had turned the tide of battle. This human saw possibilities that others missed. "We will discuss this in the council chamber," she announced. "For now, welcome back of Earth. You have proven yourself more than worthy of your position." That night Vila visited his chambers for the first time. She found him sitting by his garden, carefully replanting flowers that had wilted during his absence. His armor was gone, replaced by simple clothes. He looked like the gardener again. "May I sit?" Vila asked. Nodded, gesturing to a chair beside him. They sat in silence for a while. Vila watched him work with the plants. His hands were gentle, careful, the opposite of the warrior she had seen in the reports. "Why did you hide?" she finally asked. "For 3 years you let everyone believe you were weak. Why?" "Did not stop working. Because power without trust is dangerous. If I had shown my abilities from the beginning, your people would have feared me. Fear creates enemies, not allies. You wanted us to see you as harmless. I wanted you to see me as human, not as a weapon." He set down his tools and looked at her. "Your generals think strength is the only thing that matters, but strength without wisdom is just destruction. I wanted you to know my mind before you knew my hands." Vila was quiet. In all her years as queen, no one had ever spoken to her this way. Her advisors told her what she wanted to hear. Her enemies told her threats and lies, but spoke simple truth. I misjudged you, she admitted. I ignored you for 3 years because I believed what others said about humans. I was wrong. Smiled a genuine smile that softened his warrior's face. You were not wrong to be cautious. Trust must be earned, not demanded. Vila stood and walked to the window. Outside, the 2 moons of Prime were rising. Their light painted the room in soft silver. Tomorrow I will announce your appointment as war consort, she said. You will have authority over our military strategy. General will object, but the other commanders have already agreed. They saw what you did. They believe in you now. Joined her at the window. And what do you believe, Your Majesty? Vila turned to face him. For the first time, she did not see a political tool or an inconvenient husband. She saw a man, complicated, mysterious, and somehow exactly what she needed. I believe that fate brought you to me for a reason, she said. I do not know what that reason is yet, but I want to find out. It was not a declaration of love. They did not believe in such dramatic emotions, but it was something more important. It was respect. It was partnership. It was a beginning. Bowed his head slightly. Then we will find out together, Your Majesty. Vila, she corrected. When we are alone, you may call me Vila. He smiled again. Vila. Outside, the moons continued their slow dance across the sky. Inside, a human and a queen stood side by side, looking at the stars. The war was not over. The hardest battles were still to come, but for the first time did not feel alone. And neither did the queen. Building an alliance was harder than fighting a war. At least in battle, the enemy was clear. In diplomacy, everyone was a potential enemy and a potential friend. Traveled to 12 worlds in 6 weeks. He met with leaders of species that had never spoken to each other before. He listened to their fears, their anger, and their pride. He learned their customs and showed respect for their traditions. And slowly, impossibly, he brought them together. The first world he visited was home of the insect-like. They lived in massive underground cities and communicated through chemical signals. Most species found them strange and frightening. Spent 3 days learning their chemical language. When he finally met their High Council, he greeted them in their own way, releasing a careful mixture of scents that expressed respect and peaceful intentions. They were so shocked that a human had bothered to understand them that they agreed to join the alliance immediately. The second world was Planet of the Giant. These beings were 15 feet tall and considered themselves the mightiest warriors in the galaxy. They refused to meet with a small, weak human. Challenged their strongest fighter to single combat. They laughed. The fight lasted 30 seconds. By the end, their champion was on the ground and was standing over him unharmed. He had used the giant's own strength against him, redirecting every attack until his opponent collapsed from exhaustion. The king was impressed. More importantly, he was intrigued. He wanted to learn how a creature half his size could defeat his best warrior. Offered to teach him after the war. They joined the alliance. Each world presented new challenges. Some species wanted resources. Others wanted protection. Some simply wanted revenge against them for past crimes. Gave them all something more valuable, hope. He told them about humanity's history. He explained how humans had nearly destroyed themselves many times through war, disease, and foolishness. But each time they survived. Each time they grew stronger. Humans are not special because we are powerful, he said at one gathering. We are special because we refuse to give up. No matter how many times we fall, we stand back up. This is what I offer your alliance. Not strength but determination. Not victory but the courage to keep fighting until victory comes. His words spread across the galaxy. Stories of the Reaper of Titan merged with stories of this strange diplomat who spoke of hope. Some began calling him something new, the Sleeping Flame. High Priestess traveled with him on several missions. She explained the ancient prophecies to those who would listen. The old texts speak of humans, she told a gathering of religious leaders from many worlds. They call your species the sleeping flame, beings whose true power awakens only in the face of extinction. Your short lives and violent history have forged you into something remarkable. You adapt faster than any species we have ever seen. You endure more than any species should be able to endure. She looked at with her clouded eyes. This man is proof. He hid his flame for 3 years. Now that it burns, the galaxy itself feels its warmth. Meanwhile, Emperor was not idle. He received reports of the growing alliance with increasing rage. His spies told him that species who had hated each other for centuries were now sharing military information. His generals reported that recruitment for the coalition was growing every day, but had a secret weapon. Deep in the heart of space, his scientists were building something terrible. It was a machine of pure destruction, a weapon capable of destroying entire planets with a single shot. They called it the World Ender. In 3 months it would be complete, and no alliance, no matter how strong, would be able to stop it. Discovered the truth while analyzing intelligence data on the coalition flagship. She had joined the alliance as a scientist, using her skills to help coordinate their efforts. She called urgently, finding her brother in a strategy meeting. "I need to show you something." The data was incomplete, but the implications were clear. Was building a planet killer. The target was obvious, Prime, the heart of the alliance. Brought the information to Queen Vila immediately. "How long do we have?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. 3 months, replied, perhaps less. General, who had gradually come to respect the human after months of working together, slammed his fist on the table. "We must attack now. Destroy the weapon before it is finished." "It is too heavily defended," said. "A direct assault would fail. We need a different approach." He outlined his plan. It was dangerous, almost suicidal, but it was their only chance. The coalition would launch a massive attack on the home world. This attack would draw its main fleet away from the weapon. While the fleets battled, a small strike team would infiltrate the World Ender and destroy it from inside. "Who will lead this strike team?" Vila asked, though she already knew the answer. Met her eyes. "I will." She wanted to argue. She wanted to forbid him from going. In the past months, her feelings for him had grown into something deep and strong. The thought of losing him was painful. But she was a queen, and queens did not let personal feelings interfere with duty. "Very well," she said quietly, "but you will take the best warriors from every species in the alliance. I will not send you alone." The coalition summit was held on a neutral space station. Leaders from 23 species gathered to finalize their plans. It was the largest alliance in galactic history. Vila stood before them all, with at her side. "I once believed that strength meant standing alone," she said. "I thought asking for help was weakness. I was wrong." She looked at. "A human taught me that true strength comes from unity, from trust, from the courage to reach out to those who are different from us." She faced the assembly again. "Tomorrow we go to war. Some of us will not return, but those who survive will build a new galaxy, one where no species stands alone against tyranny. This is what we fight for. This is what we will win." The leaders rose and cheered. Species that had been enemies for generations now stood as brothers and sisters. The United Galactic Coalition was born. And in 3 months, they would face the greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen. The sky above the capital burned with the light of 1,000 warships. The United Galactic Coalition had arrived. Watched the battle from the bridge of a stealth ship. Around him stood his strike team, 12 warriors, each the best from their species. There was Myra, a soldier with 4 arms and deadly precision. There was a giant who had sworn to follow after their first meeting. There were representatives from 10 other worlds, all willing to die for this mission. And there was General. The old warrior had volunteered against everyone's expectations. "I spent 3 years mocking this human," he had said. "Let me spend my remaining years fighting beside him." Their target was visible in the distance, the world Ender. It was massive, larger than most moons. Its weapon systems were still incomplete, but its defenses were fully operational. Hundreds of ships guarded it. Thousands of soldiers waited inside. "Coalition fleet engaging main forces," a voice crackled through the communication system. "Enemy is responding as predicted. The path to the weapon is opening." Nodded, "Take us in." The stealth ship slipped through the chaos of battle. Explosions lit up the void around them. Ships died in flashes of fire. But the coalition was holding. Against all odds, they were holding. They reached the world Ender and found a maintenance hatch exactly where intelligence had predicted. Led his team inside. The interior of the weapon was like a metal maze. Corridors stretched in every direction. Enemy soldiers patrolled in groups, searching for intruders. The strike team moved like shadows, led them through routes he had memorized from stolen plans. When they encountered guards, they struck fast and silent. Bodies fell without a sound. But they were prepared for them. An alarm suddenly filled the corridors. Red lights flashed. A voice announced, "Intruders detected. All security forces respond." "They know we are here," Myra said grimly. "Then we stop hiding," replied. "New plan, we fight through." What followed was the most intense battle of their lives. Soldiers poured toward them from every direction. The strike team fought back to back, covering each other as they pushed deeper into the weapon. The giant threw enemies aside like toys. Myra's 4 arms fired weapons in all directions. General fought with the skill of a lifetime soldier, protecting the team's rear. But the numbers were overwhelming. One by one, team members fell. A warrior took a blast meant for. She died with her chemical glands releasing one final message: victory. A soldier held a corridor alone while the others advanced. He killed 30 enemies before they brought him down. By the time they reached the weapon's core, only 4 remained: Myra and General. An emperor was waiting for them. He stood in the center of the core chamber, wearing battle armor that made him look like a god of war. His golden eyes glowed with hatred. The Reaper of Titan said, "I have been waiting for this moment." "Then stop waiting," replied. "End it, you and me." Laughed, "You think you can defeat me? I am the greatest warrior the Empire has ever produced. I have killed thousands with my own hands." "Good, then you will be a worthy opponent." Handed his weapons to Myra. "Plant the explosives, destroy the core. If I fall, finish the mission." Myra hesitated. "That is an order." He walked toward the Emperor, drew his blade, a massive weapon that crackled with energy, raised his fists. They fought. Was everything he claimed, fast, strong, and brutal. His blade cut the air with deadly precision. Normal opponents would have died in seconds. But was not normal. He dodged and weaved, letting his attacks pass through empty air. When he struck back, his blows found weak points in the Emperor's armor. He was slower than, weaker than, but he was smarter. Still, it was not enough. Adapted, learned, and began landing hits. Felt ribs crack. He tasted blood. A slash across his arm left it nearly useless. Behind them, General and Fought's personal guards, while Myra worked on the explosives. "You fight well for a human," admitted, breathing hard. "But this ends now." He unleashed a devastating combination, strikes so fast they blurred together. Blocked the first 3, dodged the 4th, but the 5th caught him in the chest. He flew backward, crashing into the wall. His body screamed with pain. He could barely breathe. Walked toward him, blade raised for the killing blow. "Any last words?" Coughed blood. His vision was fading. Every part of him wanted to surrender to the darkness. But then he heard something. Myra's voice, desperate, "Explosive set, we need to go." And's voice strained, "Get up." He thought of waiting for him on the Coalition flagship. He thought of Vila, watching the battle from her command center. He thought of every person who had believed in him, fought beside him, died for this mission. He could not quit. Humans did not quit. He stood up. His eyes widened. Impossible, you should not be able to move. Smiled through bloody teeth. You asked why humans are special. This is why. No matter how many times you knock us down, we get back up. He attacked. It was not a skilled assault. It was not a tactical masterpiece. It was pure human stubbornness, refusing to accept defeat, fighting with broken bones and torn muscles, pushing forward when any sane creature would have stopped. Was so shocked that he hesitated. That hesitation cost him. Caught his blade arm and twisted. The weapon fell. Before could recover, struck his throat, his eyes, his knees. The Emperor collapsed. Yield gasped, the war is over. The explosion that followed destroyed the World Ender's core, and his surviving team barely escaped. General did not. He had stayed behind to ensure the explosives detonated properly, sacrificing himself to guarantee the mission's success. The fleet surrendered when they saw their ultimate weapon explode. Emperor was captured and taken prisoner. The war was over. Woke up in a medical bay 2 days later. Vila was sitting beside his bed, holding his hand. You almost died, she said. Her voice was angry, but her eyes were wet. Almost is not the same as actually, he replied weakly. She laughed despite herself. Then she leaned forward and did something no queen had ever done before. She kissed him. The galaxy rebuilt slowly. The United Galactic Coalition remained, transforming from a military alliance into a federation of equals. Humans, once considered the weakest species, were now respected throughout the stars. Established the first Human Research Institute, bridging two civilizations' knowledge. New medicines and technologies emerged from their partnership. And Vila ruled the empire together, not as political partners, but as true equals. Their union became a symbol of what different species could achieve through trust and cooperation. And throughout the galaxy, stories spread about a quiet gardener who became a legend, a man who hid his power until the moment it was needed, a warrior who fought not for glory, but for love. The legend of the sleeping flame reminded every species of a simple truth. Never underestimate humanity. Because when humans fall, they rise again. When they are pushed, they push back harder. And when the galaxy needed a hero, a human answered. That was the story of how one man changed the fate of the stars. And somewhere in the palace gardens, a small rose from Earth continued to bloom, delicate, beautiful, and covered with thorns. Just like the human who planted it.